Hello everyone and welcome to the second day of the semifinals of the FTX Crypto Cup. The first game we're going to cover is Teymur Rajabov versus Magnus Carlsen, and this is, well, it's quite a nice one, so let's just dive straight into it. If you remember from yesterday, Magnus and Teymur drew their match, so it was a really feisty one, but in the end it will all be decided today. So let's see what happens. Teymur with the white pieces opens with, that's not possible, with d4. We have d5 by Magnus, c4, e6, knight to c3, and now going for h6. This move is so rare it doesn't even have a name. We have knight to f3 by Teymur, knight to f6, and now bishop to f4. So just nicely. Continuing development, and now bishop to d6, countering this light dark square bishop. We have bishop to g3, and now castles. We have e3, and now there are a few games that reach this exact same position where b6 was played, also bishop captures, and g3 is a known move. But here we have c5 by Magnus, increasing the tension in the center, and now it is already as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Teymur continues. We have c captures on d5. He eliminates this pawn in the center. Bishop captures on g3. H captures, and now c captures on d4 first. We have queen captures on d4, and now e captures on d5. Bishop to b5, nicely developing, preventing the normal development of the rook, and now knight to c6. We have captures by Teymur, b captures, and now he castles. So here it's a pretty normal position, except that the pawn is not on h2, it's on g3, but black on the other hand does not have a dark square bishop. So this can only help white. So here we have rook to e8, and now rook 8 to c1. Makes sense to put the rooks on the c file. If you can get something like a3, b4 in, maybe you can hone in on this, well, maybe soon to be backwards c pawn. So bishop to g4, now attacking the knight, and now knight to d2. I know all of you want to play knight to e5 because that's an excellent square for the knight, but then c5 and the knight is lost. There's no way for you to defend it. If you try queen to f4, then g5 wins the queen. So to save the knight, you've blundered your queen. So after bishop to g4, knight to d2 by Teymur, and now queen to b6. Magnus is now very happy with his position, and he wants to trade queens. And the b2 pawn is under attack, so you have to react to that as well. So knight to b3, and the Magnus just trades. We have captures, but not with the pawn. Teymur captures with the knight, so the c6 pawn is under attack. We have c5 and knight back to b3, and now rook 8 to b8, paralyzing this knight. Also with ideas maybe of c4, the knight moves, then we're going to pick up the b2 pawn. So here, knight captures on c5, might as well capture it while you're at it. We have rook captures on b2, and now f3. Pushing back Carlsen's bishop, we have bishop to f5, and now even g4, chasing away the bishop, and now bishop to g6. Here, we have rook f to e1, as this pawn is a little bit weak. Also, you kind of want to see if it's possible to maybe win this pawn, but if not, you kind of want to start advancing this pawn. But here we have rook to c8 by Magnus, now attacking this knight, and well, what do you play here? Here Teymur played knight to b3, which is a good move, but it allows Magnus this very sneaky bishop to c2 idea. Now just attacking the knight on b3 and ready to win some material. So here we have knight to b5, asking what do you want to play now, and here we have rook captures on a2. Now the a2 pawn is no longer defended. The problem is if you try something like bishop captures on b3 now, then of course rook captures on c8, so that's not possible. So instead we have rook captures on a2, grabbing this pawn, but this is how Teymur wins it back. He just plays knight 3 to d4, now with a double attack on the bishop here. We have a6, this is the best move. You have to kick away this knight from here, knight to d6, and now rook to d8. And this is how Teymur wins the pawn back. First he captures on f7, king captures, and now rook captures on c2. We have rook captures, knight captures, and now a5. Magnus just starts pushing his past a pawn. So the material is completely equal. Knight, both players have a knight, a rook, and 4 pawns, and of course a king. It's impossible not to have a king. Even though I've seen people in coffee houses, they play and they, sometimes the king falls off the board and they don't realize it, and then it's just weird. But okay, a5, we have rook to a1, and now rook to a8. Of course, you have to put the rook behind the passed pawn to start advancing it. We have knight to d4, and now a4. Magnus starts advancing his passed pawn. King f2, we have knight to d7, and now king to e2. The king is now a very important part of the game, so you have to bring it closer to the action. Knight to e5, and now king to d2. We have knight to c4 with check, king d3, and now a3. So this is already a very, very strong passed pawn, but it's questionable if it can ever reach its destination. So here we have e4, making it impossible for captures because of captures. We have knight to e5 check, king to e3, and only now captures. So king captures on e4, improving the position of the king while capturing. King to f6, and now knight to b5. So putting pressure on this a3 pawn. We have rook to a4 with check, and now king to d5. And this is now a very adventurous play by Rajabov. Should he, if he wanted to play it a bit more safe, maybe go for a quick draw, then maybe king to e3, but he's still playing this for the win. So king d5, and now Magnus plays this rook to a5 move. The knight is now under attack, you can't really move it, so king c5, and now a2. So what do you play here? King to b4, but now knight to c6 with check, and here you have to go back. Here king to c4 was played. You could try to play a lot of different stuff. For example, if you try king to c5, then you run into knight to a7, and then there's a double attack on the knight. And of course, if king to b6, then you happily trade here. Captures, and rook b2, and this is just, of course, winning for black, because you save the pawn, and this king will just, go behind the pawns, pick them off one by one, and then win the game easily. So instead, we have king to c4, not allowing such a trick, but now comes rook to a4 with check. And now is the last moment where Rajabov should realize that he cannot continue playing this for a win. He has to go back, and everything is fine. However, he played king to c5 here, but now this is completely winning for Magnus. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the winning move while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding knight to e5. That's very nice, but it's not the strongest move. Knight to e5 is fine, but the immediately winning move is knight to a5. And now, after knight to a5, there is no move here, and of course, it was in this position on move 44 that Teymur Rajabov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Knight to b3 is the threat, and you will lose the rook. There's no defending this, or you will move the rook, then we advance the pawn. To give you an example, you play something, let's say you play this move, then we just play knight to b3 with check. This comes with check, king will have to move, and then we're just gonna pick up the rook. We're gonna move the knight, advance our pawn here, bring a queen into the game, and end it easily. And even if you try knight to d4, which kind of guards the b3 square, we just eliminate the knight. There's no problem. King captures, knight to b3 again comes with check, and if you try to go after the knight, we don't care, we just play knight c2, and now you can't win the knight because you have to win the pawn, otherwise a1 queen is coming, the knight is covering the a1 square. So here you'd have to capture it, and then we just have a knight, and we're gonna pick up all of these pawns and win the game quite easily. So yeah, after knight to a5, after a hard-fought game, Rajabov's king was a bit too active, and in the end it was the thing that cost him the game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna cover some other games for now, if Rajabov doesn't manage to win a single game, then Magnus will be the one to face either Nepo or Wesley So in the finals. And if Teymur can maybe bounce back, then we might even have playoffs. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Jonathan Linder, David Brigging, MB Ride, Rodrigo Rivadeneira, and Suresh Kota for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check all my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this very nice event, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.